bed, they cry. I don't want to be killed up here. I'm safe and happy, and I don't have to worry about work or a house. But if I go back to live with people, I'll make somebody unhappy, just like you and everybody else.
Over the centuries, many men have fled society and withdrawn to places of solitude. One such man was Lackendarra, who lived the life of a hermit for almost 40 years in the Comeragh mountains of County Waterford, a place of wild and natural beauty.
He wasn't resented or anything, as far as I know from anybody around there, you know. I think he just didn't want to be mixing with people. He just seemed to want to get away and lead the hermit's life up there, I think, you know.
By the time I knew him, he was quite relaxed, and he seemed to be happy to be where he was, and you know, he seemed quite normal, apart from the fact that he lived in a rock.
I'm not insane, far from it. I want to be at peace with the world. And where can one find greater peace than in this elevated land from which I can see 5 counties on a fine day?
He was born Jim Fitzgerald on the west side of the mountains in Castlereagh, near Lackendarra, on the 12th of February 1883. Tom Welsh from the townland of Lackendarra recalls his story.
Garrett Fitzgerald was the father's name, and Helen Tobin was the mother. I think they went to America, so whether they returned after, it seems that very little to be known about them. He was boarded with his grandparents, yeah. His grandfather was Martin, and the grandmother then, she was Bridget, she was near Farrell. And when his school days were over, then, you know, he took up employment with a cracky family of Castlereagh. You see, I suppose at that time there was no work available for, we'd say, anybody of his equals. And like when they, you see, the families then, they got so much state aid for so long out of them. But when that dried up, then there was nothing available to them. So that was the time then they decided the army.
After volunteering in Clonmel, he joined the 2nd Battalion of the Connaught Rangers and was sent to France in 1914 at the onset of the Great War. In 1916, his battalion was sent to Mesopotamia, where they fought in some of the bloodiest battles against the Turks.
The original idea for the Connaught Rangers in Mesopotamia was to fight their way up through to what is called Al-Kut. And actually, it's where the present British Army had to do their fighting when they invaded Iraq not too long ago. They fought from Basra all the way up to Al-Kut. And that's exactly what the Connaught Rangers did.
They were great fighters, but very cruel. And many of my comrades died in terrible agony under the sun. Often in my sleep I see them dying again.
In 1918 he left the army and returned to Castlereagh a broken man. And by this time, both his grandparents had passed away.
The horrific things that they had seen there, the horrific things that they probably had done, you know, would have weighed particularly heavy on their minds. And I'm sure a lot of them, you know, found it very hard to integrate back into what was a particularly, you know, it was an austere society around the turn, you know, 1920, 1918. Probably just, you know, drifted from place to place and found it hard to cope with life. And again, probably little pieces of what we call now post-traumatic stress disorder, which wasn't recognised back then, it wasn't even heard of back then. And that's probably a little bit of what happened to them when they moved from town to town, dysfunctional, couldn't get a job, couldn't fit in, drinking heavily, you know, to cope with all the pressure of what had happened to them out there.
After After returning, he went to work with numerous local farmers, but due to his severe shell shock, he could not hold down a steady job for too long. As a result, he left Castlereagh and tramped around the countryside of County Waterford looking for a place to settle. He eventually found the peace and comfort he'd been searching for in the most unlikely of places, on the eastern slopes of the Comeragh.
They say that it was a terrible, cosy kind of place where he had it lined with sheep's wool and all that.
It took me a week to convert the open cave into a comfortable bedroom. I fenced it off from the sheep and the cattle, and I carried stones down from the gullies to build a wall to keep out the winter drafts.
And he even put a little fence around it. You know, I can remember a few stakes and a bit of wire and bushes and all that all around it to stop people from going in during the day if he was gone off.
He also built a little hut beside a rock. He called it his kitchen. Rocks and mud and tar barrel tops. And he'd light the fire and he'd cook on the fire.
He wouldn't have been tall or anything, or he was never broad. He was just a low-sized man. Like, you'd never see any change in him. Like, you know, he looked the same with the hat and the long coat on him and that.
I would have gone to see where he lived out of curiosity, and he was actually there one day when we went, and he said, "Mind yourselves now, little girleens," he says, "and mind the fleas," he says, "they're hopping around here."
And we'd go up maybe once a month, you know, and my mother would bake a few cakes of bread, and we'd bring him up a few large bottles of Guinness.
The nearby people on the east side of the mountain had now embraced him as one of their own.
As I say, he was a source of gossip, like, for us as children. So we would have known all about what he did, like, you know. Everybody would have known about Lackendarra. Lackendarra, like, would have been a kind of a local celebrity in the mountains. So we all knew he was the Hermit of the Comeragh. And there would be always little articles appearing in the paper about Lackendarra. And then it became known then that people are coming to see Lackendarra from, oh God, they might even come from Waterford City to see him, like, you know, that'd be a long way to come. And they might even come from Dungarvan even to see him, you know. And it did become, then he did become a kind of a tourist celebrity that way, in that people came to see him.
As a former soldier in the British Army, he was entitled to a weekly pension of £2, which he collected every fortnight in the nearby village of Power.
Never went along the road. He always went across the fields down to Cloney. Went across the river Clodagh, along by Munsborough down into Cloney. Got his supplies in Cloney after getting his pension. He got his supplies for the 2 weeks, and then went drinking to the local pub, Flynn's in Cloney. That was his only excursion every 2 weeks. Came home maybe the next day or maybe 2 days later. He walked the roads coming home, or when he was drunk. But other than that, he wouldn't walk the roads. Didn't want to be seen on the roads. My brother told me one morning he was going to work in Carrick at 7:30 in the morning. He was lying asleep on the ditch between here and Darius pub at 7:30 in the morning, like cold, frosty morning.
The ice was after building up around him. He picked him up and all the ice came up with him, like.
He just shook himself and carried on. Carried on home. He was snowed in for a couple of months up there. It was 1947. We just don't know how he survived those couple of months.
Outside, the snow was 5 feet deep. For 3 days, I cut a channel through the snow to my kitchen, which was completely covered. When I was done, I got a roaring fire going, and I drank several tins of tea, and the robins perched on my shoulders and head.
Lackendarra seemed to finally find the peace he searched for in the mountains, but his past would sometimes come back to haunt him. The blasting of rocks on the mountainside, even a thunderstorm, was sufficient to cause him great distress. He would retreat to the safety of his rock and not be seen for many days.
I dreamt I was back home again, and I was suddenly whisked away to war and fighting in the trenches again.
Every farmer at a certain time of the year he'd do a lot of blasting, like trying to reclaim rocky land. He used to be very shook with it.
My father used to keep an eye on him. If he went missing for a day or two, my father would be worried about him, go looking for him. He was still in his bed above under the rock.
The night we were called out to myself and the ambulance driver, he seemed to be weak. So we got him on the stretcher anyway, myself and Sean and Olin, and we brought him down anyway. Bit rough, trying to carry him down, weight, and we got him into the ambulance then anyway. He said I had to stay in the back with him in the ambulance while Sean was driving. He didn't say anything, you know, kept still.
Which way did you get out? Which side is it?
Yeah, the nurses were too fussy. They gave me a terrible washing and wanted to keep me in bed all the time. I was glad to get out of the hospital. It was a terrible place for a man like me.
It was a travelling van salesman that brought the news around first that he had died, and that was how his first cousins got the ear of it, you know. All the people of that area of Cloneypower and that, well, they were so much attracted to him, they decided that he'd be buried in Cloneypower. In the last minutes anyway, first cousins, they decided no, that like, why should he be buried among strangers? And like, we, his cousins, are still alive, and that wouldn't be grand if he returned to the people that reared him, to Martin and Bridget Fitzgerald.
And when he died, they took him away. And he died out in Knockby, I think. Knockby Cemetery. So that was the end of him as far as we were concerned, yeah. It was a pity that because he spent so many years like in the parish of Cloneypower, that it's a pity that he wasn't, you know, buried in the locality.
And really and truly, there were hard times then, but it's great to know that he's here, because many of the poor people are just buried in paupers' graves, and maybe some might have money, but yet they're buried in paupers' graves. There are people who want to know about him. It's sad, but one thing I'm glad today that you've done the story about you.
Until we are have them either may steer Macleva is a live galguan fela nakere muskjol Damang shemas kumagwelta Iske hindlas na shevar Nur skapen tas na grena O spare gal gone small Nu damang shan should fwin a railta Nur a hitten brook ter around O liv gal gwen na yekshin Na meter a hoil Shemalian for me togal Lane is more quidolish Ing wail ga whistle kjol bar Bahiolta mavil Or rowing court our solia is bearing boa harbor quid Mara liv galguam bavralam
dependent on the rabbits then for his diet. He was gifted in the snaring, like. Anywhere he set a snare for a rabbit, following on and the rabbit was found there.
He used to bring the rabbits down to a local shop down there, Quan Hassel's shop, down in Bullinona, and he sold the rabbits to Quan. Quan was kind of an agent, and the rabbits were picked up every couple of days from Quan Hassel's.
Most of us at that time, we used to snare the rabbits, and we'd be selling it. Connie Hassett used to buy the rabbits then, and I'd say he used to bring him along there too, like, you know. But, that was the shop we used to all bring the rabbits to at that time, the blackberries again. He'd buy the blackberries, so much a pound, and you'd have them all picked again.
But he didn't have any vegetable garden, or he didn't do anything to provide food for himself in that way. He would have got potatoes and that locally, you know.
And my father gave him some potatoes for himself, some drills of potatoes for himself that he used to dig every year for himself just to keep him going. Yeah.